Hi everyone! Our cruising season this year seems to be shaped by external events, and we find ourselves back at Puerto Escondido. When we initially left Escondido, it was such a luxurious feeling to have no plans, know where we needed to be. Previously, it always seemed when making our trips south, we had deadlines, usually to be in La Paz by a certain date to meet arriving guests. Now we had the opportunity to linger and get to know places instead of having to rush on. As we headed south, we had a tentative destination of Candelarios Chico, a new to us, fair weather anchorage during the winter months because it is open to the north. As soon as we arrived, Blondie and I headed to shore to explore the cove with its crystal clear water and a small mushroom rock reminiscent of the larger mushroom rock at Balandra near La Paz. As the adjective Chico in the name implies, the anchorage is indeed small, but popular, and we were lucky to have found it empty. It wasn't long before a tour boat arrived to spend the lunch hour on the beach, and later in the afternoon, Penelope, who we had met last year at Los Gatos and later at Gabriel's, anchored nearby. Fortunately, our boats are on the smaller side, and the night was predicted to be calm. On the north side of Candelarios Chico is a nook which provides shelter from the north wind for the pangueros who come in to clean their catch. And it was interesting to look at the remains. Small hammerhead sharks, rays, and even lobster tails from which the meat had been removed. While it was calm, Lee and I put out our new fin delta anchor sail to try and figure out the best way to set it. We experimented with different anchor points for the sheets, and since we were not sure about the attachment point for the tack, we used some thin line that we normally use when we are running sacrificial lines in place of the halyards for summer storage. On the afternoon of the second day, Penelope departed. A breeze sprang up, and the riding sail seemed to make a difference in the amount of yaw when La Brisa sails at anchor. However, during the night the wind became stronger and gusted from the south through the gap and from the west down the wash, causing our anchor to reset several times. I was uneasy, and about 2 a.m. came on deck to stand anchor watch. Around 4 a.m., the grommet at the tack of the riding sail chafed through the thin sacrificial line, and I took it down. Based on the performance of the sail, we now have some new ideas on how we want to fly it. But by dawn, the wind had died down, and it was time for us to move on, as the wind was forecast to blow from the north in the evening. We initially sailed south in the westerly breeze, which was forecast to be light. However, when the wind began gusting over 20 knots, we took in the sails and motored. La Brisa had a nice, comfortable motion, but the wind continued to build, and we soon found ourselves in wind of more than 35 knots. This was an example of localized conditions that occur in certain areas of the Baja coast during westerlies, and we found the 13-mile stretch of coast between Candelarios Chico and Agua Verde to exceed predicted wind speeds. On our passage, it was triple the prediction. What a haven it was for us when we arrived at the next anchorage, Agua Verde. It is an all-season anchorage with protection from all directions except from the east, all dependent on the location where you set the hook. We chose the anchorage for northerlies, which in actuality does not afford much wind abatement from the north, but offers wave protection. On the day we arrived, there were several boats anchored in front of the village for the current westerly conditions, but which, we know from experience, can be very rolly when there is a northerly swell. We were looking forward to spending a week or two here at this popular cruiser anchorage. It was a chance to get to know the village better, which has a restaurant, 2 small grocery stores, and water, not to mention hiking and exploring opportunities. It was on the second day of our stay in Agua Verde that we got word via Starlink that my 99-year-old father had fallen and broken his femur. Our open-ended cruise came to an abrupt end, and we began looking at weather for a return to Puerto Escondido, where I could fly out of Loreto if circumstances warranted. In Sean and Heather's popular cruising guide, The Sea of Cortez, it is suggested that one takes safe passage between Islote Pardo and Islote Las Tijeras, or Scissors Islet, and this route is marked in Navionics. Also, according to the guide, passage can be made between Islote Pardo and Punta Candelarios, which we tried for the first time this year. We stayed in the middle of the channel in depths of 35 feet, but I did notice current in the channel at mid-tide pulling me towards Pardo when we were heading south. It is probably a route I would not use in rough weather, but it does save time and distance. Once back at Escondido with my dad in stable condition, Lee and I decided to return to Guaymas, where I would be able to drive north in our van. Join us in the next episode for our crossing back to the mainland and catching up with John and Christy. So, until then,